Hi. I've got a whopper of a story for you today about a woman who decided to treat her boss like a dog. And the story is about if you've ever known anyone who is relentlessly critical of you, kind of beating up on you mentally, putting you down. If you've ever had that problem, you'll like this video because I'll show you how to get that person totally under your control and eating out of your hands. How does that sound? So here's the story. Hope I've hooked you. A patient once came to me who was very distressed because she said her boss might have bipolar illness or something like that. She worked in a research laboratory, and she said, one month he'd be just loving and encouraging to everyone, going around the lab and saying how wonderful everyone's research was. And then the next month he'd change and he'd become just mean to everybody, putting everybody down and being hypercritical, and you couldn't do anything right, and it was just total misery having to go to work and interact with this narcissistic, aggressive, hostile, critical boss. And she asked me, what if I could help her, if I had any techniques, and of course I have fabulous techniques for that. And so, as a way of introducing it, I knew she loved dogs and was an expert in dogs. And I said to her, "Do you know how to handle a dog?" And she said, "Oh, absolutely." And I said, "Would you know what to do if you're, out walking around and some dog comes up at you and starts snarling threateningly? Would you know what to do?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, that's easy." And I said, yeah, "Okay, what would you do?" She says, "I wouldn't move much, but I would start telling the dog, 'Oh, you're such a handsome fellow,' and put my hand out gently, and then begin to pet him, and that's how you tame a wild dog." And I said, "Well, I'm going to show you how to treat your boss like a dog. Do you have an example?" And then she gave me examples of how her boss was in a bad mood and criticizing her and criticizing everyone in the lab. And I taught her the disarming technique and stroking. And if you've been listening to our 5 secrets of effective communication, those are 2 of the 5 secrets. And the disarming technique means find truth in what the critic is saying. And stroking means express warmth, respect, admiration, even in the heat of battle, even when the other person's angry, when you're angry, to say something that will stroke the other person's ego. And so she promised to try this at work. And she was a little encouraged because she loved the dog analogy. And she came back the next week, and I said, what happened? Did you get a chance to practice? And she said, "Oh, yes. What happened is I've been working for the past year on this research project, and I finally worked my fingers to the bone and drafted the paper and put it in his box and asked him for some feedback. And then when I went in for my meeting with him, I asked him about the paper, and he said, oh yes, it's in the wastebasket. I looked at it and it was a piece of trash, so I just threw it away. It was pure garbage." And then she remembered, treat him like a dog. He's snarling now. So she said to him, "Oh, I had that feeling when I was writing it, that it was off in some way. And at the same time, I know that my findings are potentially very important, could make a big impact. And one of the reasons I wanted to come here and work in your lab is because I've read your papers, and they are blow away. Your writing style, your technique of presenting material is so crisp and clear and terrific. And what would mean a lot to me is if maybe you could just take it out of the wastebasket and take a look at it and point out 2 or 3 things that I'm doing wrong, because that would help me figure out how to revise it, and that way I could learn from you, because you're one of my heroes, really." And he couldn't believe it when she said that. And he says, "Well, if that's the way you feel, it was actually a damn interesting piece of work. Let me take a look at it again." And he pulled it out and he says, "Yes, yes, I see. This is really a brilliant piece of work. And if you'd like, I'll co-author it with you. You can be the first author and I'll be the second author, and I'll help you revise it, and then we can submit it to a top journal." She said, "Oh, that is so awesome. Thank you." And she was just elated and he was just elated. And she said his whole persona changed, and he switched from his dark mood to his bright mood. And they revised the paper, and it was not only accepted to one of the world's most competitive, microbiology journals on membrane transport or whatever, some highly sophisticated thing, but it won a prestigious research award that made her famous all around the world and really established her career. And that's what happens when you learn to treat your boss like a dog. But what it was, instead of, moping and feeling sorry for yourself and angry and saying, "Why don't I have a better boss?" You accept him as he is and understand, what's going on with him. He sounded like a very happy guy. No one had said anything nice to him in a long time because he's so mean. So he doesn't ever hear anything positive, any stroking or any respect. But the fact is, he was a very famous high-level scientist, and she was fortunate to be working with him. And simply by, instead of taking the bait and feeling hurt, she told him how great he was and what she admired about him. And then he suddenly here was somebody admiring him, which he maybe hadn't heard from his wife, from anyone in the lab in a long time. And he got very happy. He worked with her, and she was richly rewarded. So that's a little story of how you can use the 5 secrets of effective communication in many different contexts. It's not just for you and your partner when you're angry with each other, but you can use it with family members, with loved ones. You can use it with a police officer when you get a ticket. Well, when I was a medical student, I cut most of my medical school classes because I was such a nerd and I was trying to, become more of a guy and learn how the street works. And so I would cut medical school classes. This was the late 60s in Palo Alto, and everyone was dropping acid and all these crazy things were going on. And I got a friend sold me his motorcycle. And I thought that was exciting because it was a super fast motorcycle. And I remember once I was had some real bad news about something. I don't remember what it was. And I went over and talked to a friend, Sergio. And then I was driving back to where I live. And I had the problem of going too fast on my motorcycle. In fact, I got 3 tickets in one day. But suddenly I heard the sirens behind me. I was on El Camino, and then I had the thought that they couldn't possibly catch me because this is one of the fastest motorcycles in the world, and I could go from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds or something like that. And so instead of pulling over, I just turned on the accelerator and turned into this neighborhood and thought, I'll just speed up, and there's no way in the world they're going to catch me. But the problem was I was overlooking the fact that my motorcycle was kind of like for a drag strip or something like that. It accelerated tremendously, but it had very poor handling. And suddenly there was a left-hand turn, and I couldn't make it, and the motorcycle, I spun out onto these people's lawn, and I was thrown off of the motorcycle, and then there were a couple police cars came up with their sirens on, and then I talked to them, and I used the 5 secrets of effective communication, and this is so shameful to say, but they didn't even give me a ticket. So you can use it in a lot of different situations. I told them I knew that what I was doing was wrong. I just disarmed them. I stroked them, and it worked. So I'm not trying to advocate police escapes, but I'm trying to say, you can, just as she used that on her boss, you can use it in any situation, but it's an art form. You have to become expert with that and learn to use these techniques in a really skillful way. So there's the stories for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to learn how to do this, we have the little Love Bot, a new aspect of our Feeling Great app that trains you in the 5 secrets and shows you how to use these powerful techniques. In case you're interested, it'll practice with you, it'll role play with you, it'll show you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And if you'd like to learn some really beautiful skills to improve your relationships with loved ones, with neighbors, with strangers, with virtually anyone, this is a very powerhouse set of techniques that has been life-changing for me, and it could be life-changing for you as well. So that's all for today. Love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I love to tell stories, and if you like stories, there's a lot more where those came from. So anyway, bye-bye for now.